Hello and welcome to our session on voices. We're so thrilled to be here today. My name is Lucie Newcomb. I'm head of the NewComm Global Group. And with me are some fabulous women I've had the pleasure of working with from Sub-Saharan Africa. I'm going to show their lovely faces in part, and here we go. We're going to be talking about breakthroughs today. And so please allow me to give you a little bit of background about each of them. In the middle, we have Janet Fofang, who's head of the TASSAH Academy in Cameroon. Janet is an electrical engineer by training and has been teaching for 15 years at one of the largest government technical institutes in Yaoundé, Cameroon, as well as numerous other areas. While supporting a strong female presence at the institute, she continues to teach technical subjects, including mechanical and electrical engineering. In 2009, she established a private K-12 school there and managing the facilities and overall operations for 400 students. She actively demonstrates her dedication to youth education and support for girls and was a early Tech Women participant in 2013. Janet, welcome. Next, looking forward to talking with you today. Next, at the far left, we have Sophie and Ngassa. In addition to being named a Tech Women awardee at the same program that we just spoke about of the Department of State, Sophie has been teaching for the past 10 years in technical high schools. Her other roles include Foundation for the Center of Youth Education and Economic Education, Technovation Challenge Regional Ambassador, and we have to congratulate Sophie. They've been doing extremely well, even early out of the gate. She has done professional internships and presently is leading a postgraduate program in water resource management in the option water supply and sanitation. Third and second from the left is Debby Edelstein. Debby is a proud South African and is credited with pioneering the solo business conversation in South Africa. She began doing this in 1999 with change agents and thought leaders in the South African business community, particularly around the role of the transformational properties of business and society. She is co-founder of the QualityLife company, which hosts conversations and events for leaders who are bold enough to deviate from business as usual agenda. She also hosts the annual Women's Leadership Conference, the Wired Women Conference for women who are shaping the digital economy, and the Inspired Teachers Conference to showcase exciting trends happening in education. Debby is an international speaker and writer on leadership, and we're thrilled she could be here today. And last but never least, Nomso Kana has been recently with the Innovation Hub Management Company and has recently transitioned to the SSG group and handles mining issues now. She's an inspirational STEM emerging leader, trained in medical biology, and an applied chemistry and computer science postgraduate. She works as Innovation Ambassador all around the world and has more than 5 years of teaching experience in medical biology and radiation testing laboratories. Nomso is a Tech Women 2000 alumna, also a graduate of the University of Fort Hare, and is also working with me in some clear sustainability initiatives around the world. So with that, we get started. Thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you.
We're going to start by creating a little bit of context for you. If we can get the slide machine to move, we will. There we go. We're going to start by giving our audience a sense of overview. When we talk about Sub-Saharan Africa, we're of course talking about the southern region, and then today we have representatives from 2 of the countries in that region, Cameroon and South Africa. So in order to give a little context to our conversation, we're going to give a bit of an overview. And I turn it over to Debby to give us some of the demographics of South Africa.
Okay, well, as you can see with the slide in front of you, our president is Jacob Zuma, who's in his 2nd term. We have a population of 51 million. Our capital cities, we have 3. Pretoria is administrative center, Bloemfontein is judicial, and Cape Town is where the National Assembly is. And we have 9 provinces, 11 official languages, and our key GDP sectors are manufacturing, business services, and retail. It's a little snapshot of a very complex and exciting country.
Thank you. It's regrettable having lived there for 5 years. I know that it doesn't do it justice, but thank you for the snapshot to give us a head start. And with that, we turn it over to Nomso, who's going to talk a little bit about the scenery in terms of women in STEM in Sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you, Nomso.
Thank you so much, Lucie. If we can look at the slides, you know, in South Africa, women make up the most of our population. So half of our population, it's made up of females. And we wouldn't want to waste none of that talent and that energy. So in STEM, there's been some major breakthroughs. And if I can start off with our political leaders, there's been about 41% of women in the National Assembly that hold high positions of decision making. And within that, they've actually created a science and technology protocol that actually assists us in creating an enabling policy framework. And that also produces strategies where now they get youth within science-related programs. And also part of that, it has also contributed a lot into our GDP. And within our GDP, there's a high contribution to R&D, in which then it results to lots of females in the research and development sector, in the academia, where now about 47% of female PhDs have been produced in the past 2 years. So it's been very consistent with that. And just moving on into the tech setup, the technology startups in South Africa, which is highly in Cape Town, in one of our provinces, is that there's been an increase of female startup founders that has been really been contributing a lot into the STEM field, which then produces what we are calling a breakthrough in our society, that female leaders that are in entrepreneurship are being recognized, and also they are given the opportunity now to showcase their business.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nomso. I know that we are reducing a very complex and exciting environment into a few sentences, but it helps us to get started. Thanks so much. Did you want to give a quick word about what you do as a STEM professional? You have a very unusual role. Did you want to just give a couple of sentences about that?
So my trajectory in STEM, it's actually been a very weird journey. Started off as a medical biology scientist, which then I got into nuclear, which I've enjoyed so much, in splitting atoms. And eventually I thought that I need to realize my dream. Then I launched into getting into entrepreneurship. So currently I'm working on erupting a fiber optic manufacturing plant, where it's going to assist the greater Africa, because my vision is connecting Africa. And I'm about to produce actually cables that are for backbone infrastructure for metro cities. And this is to bring light speed connectivity in South Africa, because we are global, we're part of the global village now. And really our aim is to get women within this sector and also creating enabling ecosystem. So I'm highly in structures where I really in programs where it stimulates girls into STEM. We bring support for girls to really retain STEM subjects in high school, and also getting girls into computer science, because that's one of our future jobs. And it's been projected that by 2020, 80% of jobs will require a STEM background. So I'm really working towards that enabling policy framework where it produces a lot of girls in STEM.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, and we wish you the very best. I'm excited about your fiber optic idea, as you know, and we'll chat further about that. But I love working with women who have not only the big vision, but the technical know-how to make a lot of that happen. Although, of course, it always takes a team like we have today. Thanks so much, Nomso, for the extra detail. And now we have Cameroon, and I believe Sophie is here with us to present a little bit of a slightly different angle on a close but quite different country. Sophie.
Thank you, Lucie. I'll be talking about Cameroon, which is found between Central and West Africa. The capital is Yaoundé. it has a population of about 22.25 million, given by the World Bank in 2013. Cameroon is a bilingual country where we speak French and English like the official languages. The motto is peace, work, fatherland. Cameroon is called a miniature in Africa because of its cultural diversity. We have the beach, the mountain, and many other attractions. Cameroon is really small Africa, as they call it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. It's been a pleasure to learn more about Cameroon through you and Janet. And so, just as we learned a bit about South Africa and women in STEM, we turn now to Cameroon. And thank you, Janet, for sharing this slide with us. Janet? Janet?
Can you hear me?
It's a bit in and out. Do you want me to read your slide for you? Okay, Janet, I'll go ahead and read your slide for you, and then, of course, there'll be plenty of time for you to share about your reflections, okay? Sorry for that. Actually, Sophie, since you're here, would you like to read the Cameroon slide? You might have some additional comments. Is that okay?
Yes, that's okay.
Thank you. Okay, so it's up on the screen, and please just go ahead and read the slide and comment if you like in brief, because we want to keep moving too. Thanks.
Thank you. Are we talking about women in STEM in Cameroon? In Cameroon, we have 14 of 193 professors, which are female. 25% are women in the workforce and they work in the STEM-related fields. 32% of final year high school girls are attracted to the STEM field. 37.5% of girls in secondary school take STEM courses, and this has really increased over the years, especially with programs like the Tech Women program, and I'm sure it will continue growing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from you? You have a different side in STEM, water sanitation, and I've always admired your passion for making water available. In part, do you want to explain a tiny bit about your rural area and why this might mean a lot to you?
Yes, Lucie, I'm very passionate about making clean water accessible to as many women as possible in my community, because here in Cameroon, especially in the rural areas, it's really difficult to have potable drinking water and also a clean environment for the good health of the population. So I'm striving and working hard to make sure that we have a clean environment, especially after attending the Tech Women program. I got into some activities like producing the biosand filter, which I was trained on how to construct, which is an affordable means of treating water in the community, especially in the rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you too, Sophie. We look forward. Again, it's so wonderful to have a team of women with really big vision and wonderful skills, whether it's helping us shift on the inside like Debby or shift on the outside like Nomso and Janet and Sophie. It's a tremendous opportunity today. So thank you as we work towards our breakthroughs. We're lining up the deck quite well. So with a very quick and never to do justice overview of our countries that we're in particularly focusing on in Sub-Saharan Africa today, I turn a little bit to our topic, which is breakthroughs. And it's coming up any moment now. Here we go. So I wanted, when I was thinking about how I might like to contribute today and what we might talk about, there tends to be a lot of pessimism about countries like Africa, continents like Africa that might move a bit slower. And, you know, having lived there for 5 years and worked there for 20, I think there are tremendous breakthroughs that don't see the light of day in terms of news coverage often. So in a very quick moment, I wanted to bring some of the work that I do with breakthroughs on the leadership side of our business to bear in this conversation, which gives us a chance to reflect on our own lives about our breakthroughs, and then also create a sense of what a path or paths might look like towards breakthroughs for women in STEM, and looking forward to sharing that discussion with the audience as well. So again, we are sweeping through a massive context again today with, this is the breakthrough model that we use in my company, just to give some framework. There are many others, but hopefully this just gives us some rudimentary idea of common ground today. So in Newcomb Global, we work with change management language here, and the as-is state is really the status quo. If we don't understand the problem well or the scenario well, we aren't going to really be effective in terms of building it out and making a solution path. So we start with the as-is state, beautiful or not as it may be. And then we turn to what might be leverage points. There are quite a few other points between these two, but for the sake of milestones, we turn to leverage points. Daniela Meadows, who's one of the early champions and architects of systems thinking, talks about leverage points as what one might call forks in the road, places where there is an opportunity to leverage a particular experience or concept or scenario for change. So as we look to where we want to go, what are the leverage points, or the levers, if you prefer, that we might throw in order to facilitate a desired change? Often this scenario then leads to a breakthrough, and ultimately that breakthrough leads to a future state. Again, this is a very simple model for what we have found is the highlights along a pretty complicated path. We actually use mostly the values trajectory, but anything you want to do just in terms of thinking about, okay, here I am, the as is, the future state is where I want to be. What breakthroughs do I need to get there? And what might some of the levers or pivots or fundamental opportunities might prevail so that I can leapfrog into those next steps? So with that, we're going to actually move into our discussion as a panel about our breakthroughs, both on an individual level, and then what we might, again, just as a peripheral idea, what's the one step or the simple next step for working in the idea of creating breakthroughs for women in STEM in Sub-Saharan Africa. So we're going to talk a little bit now about what intentional change might look like. Sometimes breakthroughs, of course, are not intentional. I've had a couple that people would call crises that actually created a whole new set of opportunities for me. I think many of my leader friends also attest to this. So with that, Nomso, would you like to start with a change that you are looking at, a breakthrough that you have experienced, and then we will all go around and talk about that, and then we'll talk about the STEM discussion. Nomso, would you kick us off with your personal breakthrough or anything you'd like to share personally about it?
Yeah, thanks, Lucie, for that. In my own experience, I've seen a breakthrough where the voices of women that have gone before us, if I may put it like that, is that they've actually shown us that there is a path for women. As I mentioned on my introduction, that South Africa's population, half of it's women. And you'll find that most women are really not within the STEM sectors. And what I've actually gathered for myself, I've identified people that I look up to. And that has really helped me in my own career to move from being a lab geek, a lab nerd, if we can put it like that, into a woman now who is in an influential position where I get to decide that in this certain mine, they need to change their processes and production into a certain way. And really the intentional seeding that has been there in my life is to really approach women, people like Debby, for example, in which I'm going to nag her from now on, is to actually look up to their leadership and actually take notes from that and repeat what they've done. And that has been a good breakthrough for me. All right, so that's a little piece of from my side.
Thank you. It's a good tip. And Debby, since we have you lovely right on the screen, why don't we move to you?
So my work has really revolved over my whole career around the power of conversation. So I think that I've been privileged to work with some of the most inspiring leaders in the world. So I've learned a few things. And one of the best lessons that I can share is something that I learned from Meg Wheatley, whose work I'm sure you're familiar with, Lucie. And Meg says that so much powerful social change begins when a few friends and I start working together. So how do we do that? We do that by having a conversation. And if I look at all the most of the successful projects that I've been involved in, it's always been by starting a conversation, by having a conversation around something that I'm passionate about, something that is that's a problem for me that other people relate to, but by expressing that passion and sharing it with a group of people who have other circles of influence and other skills and other networks, we're able to create real leverage. So one of my, probably 15 years ago, when I started doing work in Soul of Business, which was a really edgy conversation in South Africa at the time, a man by the name of Marcello Palazzi noticed my work and opened the world to me by introducing me to a whole lot of his network when he invited me to my first international conference in Switzerland. And that, if I look back, was definitely the beginning of a global connection. And I think that if I'm to retrace my steps, there are two lessons. Number one, it's about reaching out and having conversations, but also it's about having the power and the courage to talk about what we're passionate about, because it's only then, and I think it's particularly as important as women across the world, when we share our passion, we get noticed. And whether that passion is by accepting an invitation to talk at a conference like this, or whether it's a blog post or a thought leader piece, we have to find a way to let our voices be heard. And it's only then that the world is open to us. That was my personal breakthrough.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Debbie. And Sophie, what would you like to share about your path on breakthroughs?
Yes, I'll begin by talking about a challenge I faced. One of the greatest challenges I faced is how to pay it forward. That is, to have the ability to create an impact or inspire somebody's life. And also looking at ways in getting girls and women to understand the worth of being a woman in technology or in STEM. It's very challenging teaching girls how to believe in themselves, because I work a lot with girls. It is a process that really requires patience, dedication, and a lot of understanding. Now I'll talk about some achievements.
Sophie, we're having a hard time hearing you. We're having a hard time hearing you, at least I am. So you might want to repeat some of what you said. And perhaps you could give an example where you helped one of the girls you're talking about work to a breakthrough, or maybe just a breakthrough for yourself as part of that process. Sometimes they're so subtle, we hardly notice them.
Yes, like transforming the mindset of young girls. For example, I'm working now with more than 30 mentees, and I was able to do this through the program called the Technovation Challenge, where I work with girls of the ages of 16 to 18 years, which is an entrepreneurship program that trains girls to build mobile applications. So I was really faced with the challenge of helping these girls to understand that they can develop a passion or a career in STEM. And also, I've been also working with the Mozilla community in Cameroon, which has given me the opportunity to work with women and to inspire their lives. And the last project is the project on water hygiene and sanitation, which has given me the opportunity to come into contact with many girls and women and inspire them. I've also learned a lot of lessons. One of the greatest lessons I've learned is that women are the most influential agents of change in the society. And your success is measured by the obstacles you face, not by your position. So I'll end by saying that you must be very passionate and dedicated, and you must have the desire to be a change agent in your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. I'm sorry, we're having a bit of a hard time, at least I am, with reception for you. So if you can try to stay near the computer and the microphone, that might be helpful. Okay, and so we're going to move to the potential breakthrough for women in STEM. I'm sorry that Janet seems to have dropped off. She has had trouble with electricity since Friday. And you know, this is actually one of the challenges. We talk about breakthrough sometimes being this monumental thing. when you work in economies where things like electricity are not a given, and Debbie had this experience also recently, that you know, we really have to talk about breakthroughs at the smallest level sometimes. Sometimes we have to start very incrementally. So Nomso, would you like to kick us off with what you might think to see as a initial breakthrough for women in STEM in South Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, whatever you would like to comment on at that point? Thank you.
Thanks, Lucie. My view on that is really it's an investment for women in STEM, and I must applaud our government. They're doing much, but not a lot, in actually making that happen. And particularly is actually women in technology. There's been a study done by Intel in South Africa where they've discovered that there's actually a low-skilled workforce when it comes to technology. And I'm of the view that if we can leverage on what we have already and actually bring more skills and more skilled networks within our own networks and actually assisting and enhancing the skilled workforce, I think that will be a particular way for us to reach for a future state.
Thank you, Nomso. I'm going to turn now to Janet, who is with us. And Janet, if you would like to share, if you have a moment still, we'll step back on your personal reflection, and then we'll just do your two reflections together. What might be the catalyst for moving forward here?
The catalyst, I think, for moving forward is actually recognizing the problems, having some kind of a humility to accept most times what the shortcomings may be. In Africa, especially Cameroon, from the statistics you saw me place forward, we actually have serious problems with having women in STEM in Cameroon. And most times when women go into STEM, they end up doing more science and maybe some mathematics rather than technology. And this is due to the fact that we are more consumers of technologies and not producers of technology. So when we realize that we don't produce technology, we can hardly put in a lot of effort into fields where we cannot have jobs. So more or less, we have just about 2 women in the Academy of Sciences in Cameroon telling us that there is some problem when it comes to women and STEM. So the way I kind of like have had my breakthroughs is like realizing the problem, taking a step back and trying to understand that I didn't get the right education that needed to put me there. Sometimes we need to go back to school, learn basic practices, and then pay it back. Like teach students what we didn't learn ourselves. I think we may get to some point where we will make the 50-50 parity if we get the right educational processes going on for our girls and the community at large. Most probably I do more on education, and what I realize is that the content of what we are being taught doesn't lead us to solving problems around us. So personally, my personal take is train, prepare curricula, give education a different twist that will lead us to solving problems. Sometimes just building software that can solve problems around Africa could be a very interesting way to look at it. Building software doesn't take equipment. It doesn't need hardware. We don't produce hardware, but somehow we could produce software and adapt it to our personal needs. And from doing that, we'll get someplace sometime. I think so.
Thank you, Janet. And do you feel like you got a chance to share your own personal reflection? I know you kind of mixed 2 in there. Did you get a chance to share what you were planning to share?
Yes, I think I shared what I plan to share, saying that we cannot develop, we cannot go anywhere if we keep consuming technology coming from some other place. We must be able to produce our technology that is going to fit our needs. We must produce things that we need rather than consuming things that come from somewhere else. We wouldn't go any place if we stay consumers. And one way of being able to do that is by stepping back and filling the gaps. I think where women sometimes in Africa have problems is that we have lapses, we have gaps. We didn't sometimes get the right education, the equal share of education that needs to take us where we need to go. So we move forward with lapses. We move forward sometimes with knowledge that is lacking. So stepping back and filling in those gaps will give us a sound foundation to be able to go forward, I think.
Terrific. Thanks so much. And Debby, as an industry observer and sort of a meta worker with women in tech, would you like to give us your views on some of the things that you think might be breakthroughs or opportunities for women in STEM in South Africa?
I'd love to. I like the meta worker label. I think I'll use that in my bio. So I love what Janet said around creation, because I think that that's something that women in leadership need to do in general, not just women in tech. I think we need to consume less and create more, whether that's content, whether it's technology, whether it's conversations. I think that women are natural creators and we need to step up to the platform when it comes to creating. I also think that there's no shortage of talent. You know, I put together a wide woman conference, which I've done for the last 6 years, women leaders in STEM, in the digital economy in this country. And there is a wealth of wonderful women doing amazing work. What we need to do is make sure that we extend the range of role models who get a platform. Because, you know, the media are quite lazy about trotting out the same kinds of role models. And then we think that there's less happening than there in fact is. So that's one of my contributions, but I can't do it alone. So I'd like to encourage people in general, whether you own media, whether you're organizing conferences or conversations, look a little deeper, you know, look in rural areas, speak to young women. You know, I'm a great seeker of talent, but then we need to give that talent a platform and connect it. So that's the first thing, is about extending role models. And then something else that's really important to me about my leadership work in general, and I'm grateful that it hasn't come up in this conversation, it comes up in a lot of the conversations I lead with women, and that is how women have a tendency to bring women down and how we need to support each other more. Now, that's a narrative that I challenge because it's certainly nothing that I've experienced. I think women are outstanding at supporting other women. But I think that the more that we do it in practice, the more we start having faith in a new way of women working together. And we've had enormous success with peer-to-peer networks of women across socioeconomic divides, and across rural and urban divides, across generational divides, where we get women working together. So I think peer-to-peer networks, extending the range of role models that we have available to us, and creating whatever our particular mode might be. Those are my breakthrough recommendations.
Sounds terrific. Sounds terrific. Has everybody had any further thoughts? You know, as we hear each other speak, sometimes new things come up. And before I open it up to the audience, I'm just throwing it back to the team to make sure everything is okay. Okay, well, with that, we'll go ahead and open it to the audience. I think sounds like I need to go get a plug, but we have such a wonderful team and discussion group here that I'm confident I won't be missed. So let's see here. Deanna, do I go to the chat?
Well, I'm looking at the chat window right now, and there currently isn't any questions in the chat window, but I'm opening this up to the wider audience. If you want to ask a question via audio, you can just turn yourself off mute. I've muted anyone who wasn't speaking to eliminate some of the background noise, but please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask a question, or you can use the chat window if you just want to type your question in. The chat window is down at the bottom of the screen. There's a little button there that says chat, and if you open that, you'll see a group chat there. I am typing if you have any questions. Here we go.
Thank you, Deanna. I don't see how to unmute myself. Maybe other people don't either. Do you want to give us a heads up about that?
About the unmute?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the bottom of the screen, at the very left, there's a little microphone. that says mute. And if you're on mute right now, there's a red line that's going across it. If you just click that microphone, then you will unmute yourself and then you can speak to all of us. So Phil, I know a number of you that are on this call right now or on this session have been in previous sessions, so I know that you know how this works. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them at any time. So I have a question for the group, if you don't mind. So Lucie can go get her power cord. So what do you think in the next 5 years is something that we as women in technology could do to help support each other in all of these different aspects that you're working on? What would you say is the one thing that we could do to support your work?
Okay, I guess let me start. I think it's really collaboration, Diane. And I think now everyone is looking into the collaborative economy, the sharing economy. I think we should go into that stage where we're no longer working in silos. You doing your stuff over there, we are doing our stuff over here, and want to outshine each other. I think collaboration is key, and that's my take on it.
I would like to add something. I would say that for women in STEM, we also need encouragement from our local authorities in our country, especially to make the administrative procedures to be faster. Because here in Cameroon, we usually have slow procedures. And the role models have to be very active in their communities. They should freely give their time and talent to benefit the population. It's necessary to teach by showing example of selflessness and acceptance of others who were different from them. And it's also nice when our projects are being funded because it gives us the opportunity to give back to our community. And there are some things that really need to change in our country, in my country, Cameroon, like our school curriculum is really outdated. The training methods and material are really, really outdated. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet, did you have a comment?
I think, yes, I would add here by saying that personally, to me, for women in 5 years to come, it's denying the status quo. Like we sometimes we kind of like feel that being a woman, someone owes us something and things should just come the way they should because we are women, or we cannot kind of like meet up to what men do. Whatever thing we do, it's sufficient. I think we must start by denying the status quo. It's a personal decision. You deny the status quo, you deny what is going wrong with the environment, and we personally, if 10 women in 100 refuse the status quo, we will be able to make big change.
You sound a bit like Liberia, Janet.
Yes.
Okay.
In Liberia, they stopped a war by refusing to have sex with their husbands. So that's but actually, it was quite effective, and I don't think that's a STEM solution particularly. But it's always interesting to be creative.
It could be.
In my workplace, I denied the status quo. I told them, what you can do, I can do. I deny the status quo in my workplace. I do what I'm supposed to do. I give my share and full time.
I want to support Janet by saying that women really need to be assertive. If you know you can do something best, you better go ahead and do it. And we should be ready to learn from others. We should be open-minded, and we always try to think out of the box and always share our ideas so that we can grow together. Thank you.
Sounds terrific.
Okay, this is my contribution. Streaming from Kenya. This is my thought, especially in the field of education. I'm a teacher, and I want to agree with Sophia about what instruction do we give our girls in schools, and not even just girls, maybe even the boys. And it is an issue about demystifying STEM as an area dominated by men. And I want to applaud, like today I was actually listening to the earlier speakers, and the simple things that they're innovative about. I think that we need to really embrace and be able to start with the small things or the things that we can be able to impact to through our education system. And I think it will make a big difference for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have a response to that?
The difference between boys and girls and the education we give, well, it goes a long way to look at our cultures and mindsets, which is what we talked about, like shifting mindsets, trying to see that whatever thing we do, it's again denying the status quo. We can't just deny and say people don't deserve some kind of education simply because they are women, or people cannot have this or that because they are women. Like across Sub-Saharan Africa, the cultures do change as there are so many cultures, as many languages exist. So if some of these cultures could be identified, the cultures that are actually not progressing and are not putting us forward, if we could drop some of those identities and then accept good habits and benchmark with people who are succeeding, sometimes our cultures are actually the ones that keep us back. STEM education for girls is what we actually work for. And I would advise, there are so many groups in Kenya that are doing stuff on STEM education. We will be in Kenya in April to do some work with girls. We will be with Stella Rochich and the Akirachi girls. We will be doing some work. So if you go close to these girls, they can be able to help you break some of the stereotypes. Yeah.
I would just like to add something. I would just like to say it's a gradual process that needs some time. We are not supposed to be fast over the issue of changing attitudes and behavior. Like I said, it requires patience, a passion, and dedication to be able to give back to the next generation. So if we take it gradually, step by step, I think we're going to succeed if we continue this way, working together. And this platform is a great opening to share and discuss, which is going to have positive results, of which I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Tendi. Thanks for being here today, and Janet for chiming in. Deanna, did we, I think we answered your question. Is there anybody else in the queue?
So currently there isn't anyone in the queue, but they are advised that they can ask questions at any time. So Lucie, is there anything that we haven't covered that you would want to make sure that we cover, or anyone from the panel who has something they want to make sure that we cover today?
Thank you, Deanna. I've set you up very well. Thank you for that prompt. I would like to talk a little bit, we've talked a little bit about the breakthrough aspect. One of the ways, I mean, we talked a little bit about the need for women to partner in breaking status quo, as Janet would say. And so I'd like to talk a moment about the common ground. We have several women here who have been in the Tech Women program and who have met many other women in STEM from, if not around the world, certainly in a broader sense from different regions. And Debby, I know that you've been involved in international work as well. And I'd like to talk about just one or two points that you think women in STEM have in common worldwide, or at least among the women that you know in different cultures. How can we build upon one or two pieces of common ground? Well, go ahead, Janet, you look ready to go. Oh, Debby, hi, go ahead.
Hi, well, I'd like to pick up on two things. I mean, first of all, I think that I would be remiss not to celebrate this unbelievable platform that Deanna created, I know with a lot of your help, Lucie, but this is collaboration in action. You know, it's free, it's accessible, everybody's volunteering. So I think, you know, what Nomso says is so true. We need to collaborate, but there's so much lip service to collaboration and then we don't. You know, we just talk about it and, you know, we throw buzzwords around like synergy that don't really get us anywhere. So collaboration means doing something together. You know, so for this project, we all had to do something together. We had deadlines to meet. We all made ourselves available. We battled with technology. So I think this is a wonderful prototype of women in STEM and in tech around the world working together. And I would like to suggest that we come up with some ideas and that we can open up to the rest of the community as to a project where, I mean, we've got such skills available through this network. So let's create a global project together where we harness these skills and make it more than a conversation and make it a project.
Well, Deanna, here we go. Thank you, Debbie. That's a wonderful idea. And I have to say that Deanna deserves all the credit. She is the producer, the cast, the screenwriter, everything for this project. I just had the opportunity, and I do see it that way, to help choreograph this particular session, and I'm grateful for that. But, you know, Deanna has started the Global Women's Leaders, and I think Nomso is one, I think you're one as well. There are quite a few, and it's not one per country. There's a wide open platform. When Deanna has a moment, she'll come back and talk about that. And, you know, that might be a way to engage as Deanna gets busier with broader diversity issues, and also as people like yourself are willing to take up the mantle. That's so much of it, isn't it? Hey, people, like you say, people have good feelings, and I think they're actually even good intentions, but we always kind of have that gap between doing and wanting to do. So thank you, Debbie. What a wonderful inspirational call to action, and I defer to Deanna on that point, but I think it's something to say. You know, we all go to events and get all riled up, and then we come home, and 3 or 4 days later, it's often the same. So this is a real chance for transformation as well as collaboration. Thank you. Anybody else want to talk about some common ground? We have our technical platform, as Debbie pointed out, and some shared values. What else would people like to talk about in terms of women in STEM and common ground? I suppose we could talk about the resistance, but there are probably other things too. Nomso, do you see some commonalities between women in mining and women in more, you know, intricate levels of technology like nanotech? Do you see some similar challenges?
Well, I've had a few conversations with women in leadership in mining, and their cry really is really on inequality in the mines, and it's, one could think it's petty things. If we look at that sector, still today they design PPE, protective clothing, to go down in the mines for men only, and women needs to fit into that. So we actually putting out a calling to action to say, look, this is for everyone. Women have a right to go down and dig some uranium down there, and it should be something that they should be considered in a way that there is special protection for women. If I can just tell you a sad story that has happened in South Africa, there's a mine called Lily Mine where about 2 women and 1 guy have been trapped for 32 days now. And the search community has actually said that it's going to take them 6 months to get them out. However, one of the things that we've been called in to come up with a solution was to say that, how about we put up a consideration for women in the mines that can look after their security and also their working conditions, because apparently when these mine workers went underground, they were actually doing a double shift. And they were selected because there's apparently few women in that mine, and they were selected for such. So it's been an open eye also in the mining industry to say that we don't have policy, even protective measures to protect women within that. So I think, coming into this sector, which is quite new to me, is I'm going to spearhead a loud cry for protection for women working specifically underground and looking after their needs while they are there.
Thank you, Nom. So we often talk about, certainly in Silicon Valley, and I think the rest of us in general, talk about protection in a more emotional, rights kind of way, and you are also dealing with the physical reality, which, you know, we have some dimensions of that, unfortunately, but it's a different kind of thing. So thank you, because obviously if we're not relatively healthy and certainly safety-wise protected, then everything else is kind of a moot point.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Well, I just want to
talk to us about entrepreneurship. Women and entrepreneurship, because the entrepreneurship side of STEM, when we talk about STEM, we all look at founders and creators of technology and things. And it's interesting to know all the stuff that Lucie does and knows about entrepreneurship. It's true, we've been holding conversations about seeing how we can do some kind of entrepreneurship trainings. But I think it's very important for the women in my community to understand what actually it is about entrepreneurship, about actually having money and sometimes keeping it in a bank and leaving it to be there so you can have some kind of credibility to be able to start up a business or to be able to do some stuff for yourself, having some kind of backup, having a plan about what you want to do. I think that's one part that we can expand on sometime with Lucie.
Yes, thank you. We have only a couple of minutes left, but would anyone else like to talk about entrepreneurship? That is a core part of not only our business, but my personal commitment, because we have seen from the data when we uplift women, particularly economically, we uplift societies, families, communities, and the world. So I am so passionate and grateful to be very involved with women's entrepreneurship. Does anyone else want to have a particular? Debby is, of course, a key entrepreneur, and would anyone else like to talk a little bit about that in our last couple of minutes? How it relates to women in STEM or your own vision of breakthroughs?
Well, there's more conversation happening in South Africa about access to funding, which really it reflects the difficulty that women entrepreneurs around the world have when we're talking about access to funding. So there's been a flurry of angel investors in Cape Town, but we're still finding that women are reluctant to pitch, and women are finding it harder to raise money. So there are a number of conversations that I'm excited to be part of, where we're looking at coming up with some new and more radical ways of funding talented women. So I hope to be able to share more of that fairly soon.
Wonderful. Yeah, I've been very excited to see the growing ecosystem in South Africa around these issues. I often, I'm conscious this is where my soapbox usually comes out, because I'm so passionate about women creating the ecosystem for entrepreneurship, for funding, for development, because here in America, where it was all created by men, women are banging down the door to get in and participate and lead on those levels. And I'm always talking, whether it's in Malaysia or Africa, about we're going to have to build it. Let's get women in the beginning, because it will be a lot easier, a lot better. We have strong data now that 35% higher profits come when women leaders are involved in companies. So that's my platform for today. In terms of Debby's call to collaboration and comments about entrepreneurship, I think if we can really be part of the ecosystem, women funding women's businesses as well as other businesses, of course, can really change the platform. Yeah. So, Sophie, did you want to say something? We have to wrap up, Sophie, but please come through if you'd like to talk.
Well, I was just going to extend a word of gratitude to Diana and Lucie, because this is really a great platform for us to share. And I was saying it's a good platform for us to share our experiences and also to exchange our ideas. There have been some positive changes in Cameroon concerning women in STEM. There's an increase in the number of girls in technical schools. Girls are doing technical trades. And also the number of men holders of responsibility and women in also. So my connection is lost. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Sophie, you're coming in and out, but thank you very much. I apologize. We kind of have to wrap up here, but thank you very much for your comments and, of course, for your appreciation. I really appreciate all of you, on top of busy lives, taking the time to prepare and participate and lead today. I have the final screen up that has our email addresses, and it will, I think, be available with the presentation when it's recorded and posted. So I want to thank all of the participants today, Sophie, Debby, Janet, Nomso. I'm so honored to have worked with you prior to today and even more following today. Thank you very much to those who have listened with us and who have participated in a conversation. And thank you to those who will be listening in the future. Our thoughts and our ideas and challenges and inspiration go with this broadcast, and we welcome all of you to join in widening the circle and making change and breakthroughs happen. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, everyone. And have a nice evening in Africa. Bye-bye.